Good evening. It's Monday, January 20th. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Maya Trabulsi. It's a deployment not seen since the Vietnam War. And tonight, 2,000 U.S. sailors are back on land in San Diego after a record-breaking stretch at sea. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh was there when the USS Abraham Lincoln pulled into port.
Gia Spence has been waiting at the dock at Naval Base Coronado with her 3 small children since early this morning. In fact, she's been waiting for her husband for the last 10 months. He's been deployed before, but this record-breaking deployment was hard.
Very hard.
Yeah.
Hard raising the kids by myself and not having anyone out here, no support. But we made it through, and I found some local friends to help me out.
Lincoln was scheduled to arrive in October at its new home port in San Diego. Its arrival was pushed back 4 times as the U.S. waited for a carrier to replace the Lincoln in the Middle East. Monday, for the Spence family, that wait was finally over.
This is my most challenging deployment out of the 5 I've been on. So this one, I don't know. And then been away from kids my kids ask me where I'm at every day, getting pictures, and it was tough.
At 294 days, it was the longest deployment by a U.S. carrier since the Vietnam War. The Navy has been pressing to keep deployments under 7 months, mainly to lessen the strain on families. But the head of the carrier strike group, Rear Admiral Michael Boyle, couldn't guarantee there wouldn't be other long deployments in the future.
It's the nature of the world, and we've got to be ready to do whatever the Navy and the nation needs us to do. And this particular time out, they needed us to stay on station for as long as we did, which was just shy of 10 months.
This was also the longest deployment ever by a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. With the arrival of the Lincoln, 3 carriers are now home ported in San Diego, including the USS Roosevelt and USS Carl Vinson. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
We're less than 17 hours from the start of President Trump's impeachment trial. Over the coming weeks, the Senate will decide whether or not the president should be removed from office for abusing his power and obstructing Congress over his dealings with Ukraine. Karen Kaifa has more from Washington.
The House impeachment managers walking to the Senate chamber for a walkthrough on Monday. Senators were sworn in for the impeachment trial last week, and on Tuesday, they're slated to sign off on the rules. Democrats criticizing Republican leader Mitch McConnell for waiting to share what those proposed rules look like.
I think that they've been scrambling for some time to try to figure out how to make this happen as quickly as possible and how to avoid having relevant witnesses.
Democrats also continuing their push for more witnesses and more documents to bolster their case against the president.
We Democrats aim to get the truth.
Republicans say Democrats are admitting their case is weak. And in a pretrial filing Monday, the president's legal team argued for a swift acquittal, calling the process a charade. As part of the president's defense, Alan Dershowitz will argue that the charges don't meet the constitutional criteria for impeachment.
If the House charges do not include impeachable offenses, that's really the end of the matter, and the Senate should vote to acquit or even to dismiss.
House Democrats will deliver their opening arguments first, then the president's team. As proceedings begin here Tuesday, President Trump will be out of town in Davos, Switzerland for the World Economic Forum. In Washington, Karen Kaifa, KPBS News.
KPBS will have gavel-to-gavel coverage of the impeachment trial on all of our platforms. PBS NewsHour coverage will be carried on KPBS 2. You can also follow everything on KPBS Radio and kpbs.org. Again, the Senate trial begins tomorrow. The Trump administration is planning to expand its travel ban to include immigration restrictions on 7 more countries. According to sources, the plans and which countries are still under review. A U.S. government official says the new rules could limit certain immigrant visas from the additional countries. It would essentially create a partial immigration ban. The first travel ban was created by executive order nearly a year ago. A shelter that helped thousands of migrants in the days after they arrived at the southern border has found a new home. KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler says that was originally a short-term solution could become a permanent fixture in San Diego.
Last fall, as thousands of asylum seekers began arriving at the San Diego-Tijuana border, Immigration and Customs Enforcement abruptly stopped a program that helped migrant families coordinate their travel once they were released in the U.S. Dozens of families were being dropped off overnight at the Greyhound bus station in downtown San Diego, without any idea of where to go or how to pay for it. A coalition of groups known as the San Diego Rapid Response Network immediately sprang into action and opened a series of shelters for stranded families. About a year ago, the shelter began using an empty county courthouse downtown. Now, it has found a more permanent location in a state-owned building in Linda Vista. Michael Hopkins is the CEO of Jewish Family Service, which is running the new shelter. He gave KPBS a tour of the facility.
A much smaller clothing donation room.
In a little over a year, the shelter, in its multiple locations, served over 20,000 migrants and helped them get medical assistance, coordinate and helped pay for their travel, and assess their needs for their next immigration court hearing. Most families only stay for a day or two, but are often getting their first nutritious meal or hot shower in weeks. Teresa Torres is the food service lead at the shelter.
This is our brand new dining room. It looks absolutely beautiful.
While the numbers of families staying at the shelter has decreased since last year due to the Remain in Mexico program, JFS believes that the shelter fills a need that San Diego has long had to help care for recently arrived families.
So we've had ICE officers come here and see the work that we're doing, and they've been pretty impressed with the quality of the transportation and sort of the handoff that we provide. It's hard to believe that the government is going to go back into doing this work.
Jewish Family Service has been contracted by the state to run the shelter for 2 years.
It's safe to say that that this type of shelter is part of the fabric and part of how we welcome individuals in California.
Max Rivlin-Adler, KPBS News.
Allegations of a possible cover-up are being made tonight by the family of a local frat student killed when he fell off a bunk bed following a night of partying. KPBS reporter Joe Hong has more.
A report published in the San Diego Union Tribune calls into question the thoroughness of the SDSU Police Department's investigation into the death of 19-year-old Dylan Hernandez. Hernandez died in November following an event hosted by the fraternity Phi Gamma Delta. At some point during the night, he fell out of his bed at Tenochca Residence Hall. He was found dead the next morning. The medical examiner's office later identified the cause of death as blunt force injuries of the head. It remains unclear whether alcohol was a factor. According to the Union Tribune, which obtained a copy of the investigative report through the Hernandez family's lawyer, University police did not interview any members of the Phi Gamma Delta fraternity, despite finding videos on Hernandez's phone depicting violent hazing and excessive drinking. In an email, University Police spokeswoman Raquel Harriet said the investigation report received by the family is not complete. The San Diego State University Police Department is aware of recent coverage that has brought specifics of the ongoing investigation into the death of Dylan Hernandez into the public space. The preliminary incomplete police report was provided to a representative of the Hernandez family in an effort to be as supportive and transparent with the family as possible. Details of the incomplete report, released late last year, was not meant to be shared with the public as it compromises our ongoing investigation. The Hernandez family's attorney, George Kinley, could not be reached for comment on Monday. University Police is asking anyone with more information about Hernandez's death to contact them immediately. Joe Hong, KPBS News.
From coast to coast, millions of Americans observed Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Besides being a federal holiday, there were many events taking place, several here in San Diego. Among them, the MLK Day of Service gathered at Balboa Park. The annual event is intended to empower individuals, strengthen communities, bridge barriers, create solutions to social problems, and move us closer to Dr. King's vision of a beloved community.
I really do think because look at everyone, we all look so different, but we're all helping for a common cause, I guess.
As people of different faiths, we recognize that God gave us this earth and that we are called to care for it and steward it in the best way we can.
And as you can see, many use today's event to come together and do community projects like landscaping and planting. And in City Heights, another Day of Service event. This one saw people roll up their sleeves to volunteer at an immigrant and refugee garden. KPBS City Heights reporter Ebony Monet was there.
The reason I plant to eat organic and help the other too. That's why I take to the market.
Lucia Laquanian is one of 80 gardeners who work the land here at New Roots, a community garden on 54th Street near Oak Park in San Diego's City Heights community.
This is a red masa green.
Laquanian says she learned to grow vegetables as a child in Uganda.
If I don't do it, I don't feel good. Now when I have a garden, I feel really good. I feel like I am back Africa.
The International Rescue Committee has managed this garden since 2010. That's the year it was visited by Michelle Obama to promote her campaign against childhood obesity.
So my sisters and myself, back from 2007 on forward, we've been at the community garden.
Antonio Cercedo Figueroa says that visit encouraged the community by showing them that the work they were doing was important.
We provide an area where they can have the opportunity to harvest and grow and not only show their younger generations, their kids and future kids, what the roots were behind in other parts of the world. Today, gardeners have help. 20 LISC AmeriCorps volunteers spent their morning cleaning the garden. Also, City Heights Community Development Corporation has announced it's taking over the management of the 89-plot garden. CDC leaders say gardeners will continue to keep what they grow and earn money by selling vegetables at farmers markets. And this former dumping grounds turned garden will continue to offer City Heights much-needed access to low-cost organic foods and green space. Ebony Monet, KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, the impeachment trial of President Trump. What you need to know. Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Jessica Meir over at the truss segment, still trying to wiggle that portable foot restraint into a secure place.
Astronauts at the International Space Station were hard at work on this MLK holiday. UC San Diego alumni Jessica Meir and Christina Cook completed a 5-hour spacewalk. They had to venture outside to make some upgrades to the space station's power system. This is the second spacewalk in the past week for the pair. They made history in October when they conducted the first all-female spacewalk. A popular trail will remain closed this week after a fire at Anza Borrego Desert State Park. What you're seeing there is some video shared by the Desert Research Center. This weekend's fire burned several palm trees at the Borrego Palm Canyon trailhead. A sheriff's department helicopter used water from a nearby golf course to put the fire out. No word yet on the cause. Staff are asking people to avoid the trail as investigators work to make sure it's safe for hikers. We saw light rain across San Diego today, but the clouds are moving out. Lauren Rainson has the forecast.
Good evening. A series of storm systems continuing to impact areas to our north, but that is funneling in Pacific moisture in our direction. That's why we're seeing rain showing up on the radar. It's a lot more bark than bite, though, because the coverage, it's very light in intensity. As far as amounts go, I'd say no more than 1/4 of an inch, if that, and you will find the higher rainfall amounts as you head closer to the coast. Showers in the forecast for you tonight in Oceanside with a low of 49. Widespread lows in the 40s to the 50s under a mostly cloudy sky. In time Tuesday, that moisture will be surging its way southward, so we will continue on with a few showers in that Tuesday forecast. The futurecast, though, I mean, it's going to be very hit or miss, very light rainfall in intensity over the next 24 hours. No, I am not expecting a total washout for that Tuesday morning commute. You will start out the day on a cloudier note before breaking free of that, getting back to a little bit more of that afternoon sunshine and high temperatures in the 60s throughout the area. Well, we're hanging on to the mild conditions throughout the southwest part of the country. Wetter conditions will be building in throughout portions of the southern United States. That cold air still firmly locked in place across the eastern half of the nation within the next couple of days. Powerful storm system in the middle of the country will be spreading its way eastward. Ahead of that, temperatures are actually going to be rising throughout the eastern half of the country. For us back closer to home, the continuation of dry, enjoyable weather. Along the coast, anticipate a lot more days filled with sunshine and high temperatures in the 60s, much warmer toward the end of the week. Further inland, a lot of sunshine to go around with highs in the 60s through Wednesday. Will approach the 70s beginning the end of the week. Into the mountains, you're also soaking up that sunshine, a high of 46 Tuesday, clear to the 50s middle toward the end of the week. You'll end out the work and school week with a high of 52 with a mixture of sun and clouds. We'll take you into the desert where we're also featuring plenty of sunshine, highs in the lower 70s through Wednesday. A bit warmer beginning Thursday with highs in the middle to the upper 70s. Slightly cooler with a high of 73 on Saturday and plenty of sunshine. Very nice. Reporting for KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Lauren Rainson. Back to you.
Our special coverage of the March primary continues tonight with changes for the San Diego City Council. District 5, which covers Scripps Ranch to San Pasqual, will elect a new council member. KPBS reporter Claire Tregesser met the candidates.
My name is Isaac Wang. I am running for San Diego City Council District 5.
I'm Joe Leventhal. I'm running for District 5, San Diego City Council.
My name is Marnie Von Wilpert. I am running for City Council here in District 5.
3 candidates, each with very different backgrounds.
I do a GIS and data visualization software company.
Isaac Wang also is a Navy veteran, has a degree from Duke in public policy, and worked in urban design.
I grew up here and I care deeply about this community.
Marnie Von Wilpert is a deputy city attorney. She used to work as a lawyer for the National Labor Relations Board and was in the Peace Corps.
I started my own law firm 7 years ago.
Joe Leventhal also served on the San Diego Ethics Commission. Leventhal is the only Republican in the race. The other 2 are Democrats. When we asked what was their top issue, they each gave different answers. We'll start with Isaac Wang.
Design safer streets. I think you see a lot of poor street design that leads to people driving faster. It leads to people running stoplights.
And how would he tackle safer streets?
Speed tables, roundabouts, crosswalks, angled parking. There's a lot we can do to our physical environment to shape safer streets.
Next, Marnie Von Wilpert.
Wildfire prevention will be a huge priority for me on the City Council. I know what it's like. My parents still live in the house that I grew up in, just up the street from here, and when they were evacuated and a couple of my friends' homes had already burned, it was terrifying.
So what would she do about preventing wildfires?
We want to make sure our firefighters have the resources they need to adequately cover our communities, a number of fire stations that are needed, make sure we can have our firefighters recruitment and retention crisis reduced so we keep good firefighters in our communities.
Finally, Joe Leventhal's #1 issue.
Roads, again, I think people still want to see more progress on our roads. I think there's more innovation that we need to bring to something as simple as roads.
What kinds of innovation?
Some cities in the country have started using Kevlar type material in the roads material, which helps them last longer. UC San Diego right now is experimenting with a stretch of road that has recycled plastic in it.
But one issue stood out for all the candidates.
Inclusive housing, affordable housing.
I see the challenges that new families face trying to buy a home.
Homelessness, and I really do think the way we've been approaching the homelessness challenge is not working.
Yet when it comes to solutions, none have any new ideas. Here's Isaac Wang.
I think we have a lot of regulatory hurdles in our housing market. There are fixed costs to labor, to land, to materials. How can we reduce a lot of the other stuff?
Here's Marnie Von Wilpert.
Making sure that we're doing what we can to have the housing that everyone can afford to live in.
And Joe Leventhal, who talked about homelessness, not housing affordability.
We're treating the homeless population as monolithic. And the underlying reasons people are homeless vary. And I really think we need to have people on separate tracks depending on what that underlying reason is. For some, it's mental health issues. For others, it's addiction issues.
He says for people dealing with a short-term problem like a lost job, they need permanent housing first. But others need treatment, not just housing. We also asked for any new ideas for the district. Isaac Wang has one.
Something called Asian night market. I think if we can really bring down the cost and make it easy to have small footprint businesses, we can see a lot of the small food vendors and small night markets that we see in a lot of other countries.
Marnie Von Wilpert says she also wants to work on setting up more transportation for seniors and veterans who need to get to the VA. And Joe Leventhal says he'd bolster the police department in a specific way.
Maybe look at using our reserve senior volunteer patrol more than we are now for some things like traffic management.
The top 2 vote-getters in March will face off against each other in the election in November. Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
You can watch or stream our coverage anytime at kpbs.org and our KPBS podcasts. Tomorrow we'll meet the candidates for City Council in District 7, which covers neighborhoods stretching from Mission Valley to Miramar. California charges steep taxes on cigarettes. Now the extra cost could be added to vaping. Capitol Public Radio's Sammy Caola has more on the governor's proposal.
Newsom is proposing a $2 tax for every 40 milligrams of nicotine. That's how much is in a standard Juul pod. The state already taxes the device. Health experts say a tax is an effective way to get people to drop a habit. Regular cigarette consumption slowed when California raised the tobacco tax. But they say e-cigarettes are a lot more complicated, and people will find loopholes. Manufacturers can rig a device to make the nicotine more potent without changing the actual amount. And kids often share someone else's device, so they might never even see the tax. There's also concern that the tax will deter adult smokers from switching to e-cigarettes, which are generally seen as a healthier option. In Sacramento, I'm Sammy Caola.
Animal rights activists are demanding action after 3 more horses died over the weekend at Santa Anita Park. That now makes 42 deaths there since December of 2018, and activists are calling for a nationwide ban on racing. The 3 deaths occurred over consecutive days. A spokesperson for PETA says the California Horse Racing Board was recently given the authority in legislation backed by Governor Newsom to suspend racing, and now it must do exactly that. Officials at Santa Anita released a statement reaffirming its commitment to horse safety. Climbing higher, the San Diego State men's basketball team is now ranked number 4 in the country. Coming off another solid win this weekend against Nevada, the Aztecs moved up 3 spots in the AP poll. Tomorrow night, they host Wyoming. A win would tie a team record with a 20-0 start. A local remake of the cult classic Rocky Horror Picture Show sold out its stage show last year in Ocean Beach. Now it's back with some new twists. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando has a preview of the show that opened this weekend.
Michael Miserani is best known as a choreographer with a flair for sexy cabaret dance shows. That makes him a perfect choice for tackling the Rocky Horror Show, not just once, but twice.
Well, I didn't change any of the staging or the dances, but half the cast is new. Usually it's done in a glam rock style, and there's part of that in there, but we went more like an SM leather aspect of it, so it's very much about the leather and the bras and the jock straps and the thongs and the chain skirts and the riding crop and the floggers. So it's much, more of that is in the production.
Returning to play the square Brad is Hunter Brown, but new to the cast is Joey Kirkpatrick, who plays Frankenfooter, a sweet transvestite who welcomes Brad to a whole new world.
It's really fun to just kind of, get in that mindset of being from just like regular small town Americana and then being drawn into this world of just insanity and craziness. Janet and I both, different things start happening to us, and I feel like both of the characters start getting more and more comfortable with everything as it goes on, just kind of getting pulled into everything.
And they're finding out things about themselves they didn't know or were repressed. And so they sort of start to change how they look at themselves and their sexuality.
It's not about him changing into something he wasn't. It's about all of these walls that he's had come down.
And those walls come down through one of the show's most iconic songs, The Time Warp.
To me, the time warp is like initiation. So they do it like they do it 4 times, let's do time warp. And slowly, Brad and Janet get pulled in until Columbia grabs them and makes them do it. And so their initiation is complete by then. So it's a little bit more intricate, a little bit more complex than normal. But all the aspects of, jump to the left, you have to jump to the left because the lyrics say you have to jump to the left.
Jump to the left!
Performers and fans have been doing the time warp for decades because the issues the play addresses so irreverently have not gone away.
I think the appeal is that the issues haven't gone away. The issues of sexuality, of accepting yourself as you are, of body image. Our cast is shapes and sizes, and they're all beautiful. And I think those aspects still resonate. I think people are still still struggling with identity. And so when they go and see this, they see it's all right. It's all right.
It's like the show itself isn't that deep, but it's cool to see all these different people just being free on stage. And just like the message of don't dream it, be it. I just think it's such a powerful.
That's actually a better answer. Be yourself, embrace who you are, your irreverence and uniqueness.
You can embrace the sexy irreverence of this Rocky Horror Show through March 1st at the OB Playhouse. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
And here's a recap of tonight's top stories. The USS Abraham Lincoln has arrived in San Diego. Military families welcome 2,000 sailors to Naval Base Coronado. The group spent 10 months at sea, which is the longest deployment for an aircraft carrier since the Vietnam War. San Diego is now the home port for the Lincoln, which deployed from Virginia. And tomorrow, the Senate impeachment trial of President Trump is set to begin. Republicans hold the majority and they'll control the process. Exact rules on witnesses and documents will be decided this week. The trial to determine whether or not the president should be removed from office may last several weeks. And here is a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. More of our special coverage of the primary election. Will San Diego's Brian Meinschein be able to hold his assembly seat after switching parties from Republican to Democrat? And Midday Edition shifts to 9 a.m. due to impeachment coverage. We'll tell you about a new documentary on the Duncan Hunter political dynasty. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us tonight. Have a great evening.